Episode 3 of House of the Dragon has come and gone, and you know what that means? It is House of the Dragon Mondays here on my channel. We're going to talk about some Game of Thrones. So this brand new episode picks up exactly where the last episode ended, with the Dance of the Dragons, this big war between the Targaryens, still sort of brewing. Every single episode so far has kind of built up and ended in a spot, going back to even last year's finale, where you feel like the war is breaking out. This episode, the war is breaking out. There's going to be some big moment this episode where the war is officially started. And then we just keep kind of getting more of these quiet, kind of slow builds to what we know is eventually going to happen. And this episode's kind of more of the same. We don't get the war, but we get more of this slow building, more of the politics, the scheming. And it's all great. This episode was absolutely incredible. It might be the weakest episode of the season so far, but that is not saying that it is bad. It just felt like the one where the least amount of memorable stuff happened. But a lot of memorable stuff did happen, though. Spoiler alert, by the way. So there's many different plot points in this episode. The first one is Daemon. Daemon has gone to capture Harrenhal. Harrenhal is the castle that was built in the Riverlands. It is one of the most important castles in Westeros. It was the biggest and most fortified castle in all of Westeros until Aegon came with his dragons and burnt it to the ground. But it is still a rallying point for armies to get to King's Landing. It was a big deal in Game of Thrones, which is why Tywin was there with his army, and it was just a big deal who controlled Harrenhal, and it is a big deal in the Dance of the Dragon. So Daemon goes there, he flies there with his dragon, and he captures the castle. And we get to see this weird arc with Daemon throughout the episode where he's kind of experiencing Harrenhal in a way that we haven't really seen it in the show before, or in any Game of Thrones show. Harrenhal is meant to be kind of this haunted castle, this cursed castle. Everybody that lives there kind of dies tragically. It's just this very weird and unique place that hasn't truly been explored yet in these TV shows so far. Here we see it. Daemon seems to be haunted by his own ghost through here. We see Millie Alcock back as the young Rhaenyra. She comes and makes a cameo. He's seeing a vision of her as he's looking at Jaehaerys Targaryen, the baby that died because of what he did, sending blood and cheese. And there's like a regret with Daemon that really humanizes his character in this episode a lot. It would be a lot easier for Daemon just to be kind of like this cold-hearted dick, like this guy that's just like, the kid died and whatever, which he kind of plays off in the previous episode to Rhaenyra, but here you could see that it's definitely weighing on him a little bit. This kind of state of this war is still weighing on him. He wants to do stuff for Rhaenyra. He wants to take the throne back, but he's not evil. He's not like a total piece of shit. We also follow Sir Criston Cole, who is now the Hand of the King, the man who has actually kind of won the Game of Thrones, going from a non-nobility, just this random low-born person. Now he's the Hand of the King and the Lord Commander of the Kingsguard, and he's somewhat taking his job seriously, and now we have a bunch of men thirsty for war controlling the council. Otto Hightower, this voice of reason, is gone, so everybody in charge of this council is now saying we have to go to war. So Criston Cole is going with a bunch of men, including Alicent Hightower's brother, a weird character that just kind of came out of nowhere, and I already like him because he's kind of like, Criston, you're a douchebag, and I see that. I'll fight with you, but you're a douchebag. I like that shit. I like his character so far. So they're going off to Harrenhal to try to capture that. You have Aegon and King's Landing still being Aegon. There's a great sequence in this episode where he made a bunch of his friends Kingsguard. He made like a bunch of the dudes he's usually hanging out with Kingsguard, and they're all joking around like, oh, we're gonna go to a whorehouse, we're gonna do all this stuff, and Aegon being very serious, being very kingly. He's like, really? Aren't you guys supposed to be chastity, all that stuff, because you're Kingsguard now? And all the Kingsguard get scared, all of his friends, they go, oh yeah, I guess you're right, you know? It's like, no jokes. Maybe Aegon's taking his shit seriously. And then one scene later, he goes to the whorehouse with his friends, and he's laughing and joking, and he confronts Aemon in one of the funniest scenes ever, when he finds Aemon sleeping with that woman that he's always sleeping with, the woman that took his virginity, I guess. And he's making fun of him, and I think it's like the funniest thing ever. Aemon is one of the best characters in this show, and one of the reasons is because I actually think Aemon, in a weird way, is one of the more honorable characters. Yeah, I know what you're gonna say, but he killed Luke. That was not very honorable what he did there. I feel like Lucerys Velaryon was like his one weakness. This guy that took his eye, and ever since that day, he just hated him so much that it blinded his honor. But if you look at pretty much everything else Aemon has done so far, he is kind of this honorable, respectful dude that wants to follow the laws of Westeros. He's got the strongest dragon, he's a strong warrior, and this kind of weird sense that he keeps going back to this same woman because she's the only one that he's ever slept with, and maybe there's like an honorable reason. He feels like his virtue is with this woman until he's married or something. Like, it's just an interesting take on this character that, yet again, it would have been so easy for them to just make him this evil prick, because the Greens are technically the bad guys of the story. One thing I don't love about this episode is Helaena with the Greens. In the book, it's depicted that Helaena, after the death of the kid, after the death of her son, really became this dark, miserable, just absent-minded person. She couldn't sleep with Aegon, she couldn't be around people, she was just so miserable that she was pretty much dead from that day going forward. And here in the show, I don't really see that so far. I wish there was more emphasis on that. Maybe the books, they're going like, oh, the accounts from the books, the eyewitness testimony wasn't exactly correct with that. We also get a lot more Rhaenyra in this episode. We actually haven't gotten that much Rhaenyra between the 3 episodes. The first episode, she was barely in. Second episode, we got some stuff with her and Daemon. This episode, we actually get to see her be queen, manage her different people that are on her council, take insight from Princess Rhaenys. She sends off her stepdaughters to go do different things. You know, she's actually managing this war, and you can still see that even despite everything that's happened, she is still trying to prevent this war that feels inevitable, but feels so stupid, because it is stupid. And she's got this angst to her, and it's the one thing I really love about this show. It's something that I actually think it does better than Game of Thrones. All of the characters in the show on both sides are showing the stress and anxiety of what is actually going on. They know a war is coming that is going to kill a bunch of people and will likely end with the deaths of themselves. They're probably not going to be able to survive a war of dragons. So there's this angst to pretty much everybody. Rhaenyra's council is nervous. They're scared. They want to build an army. They want to attack right away because they don't want to die. They want to win. So you see the way they're performing these scenes, there is just this sense, this weight that is weighing on all of these people, especially Rhaenyra, who feels like even though she's in a position where she could win the war, she still knows the dire consequences. So there's this sense of, fuck, this natural human weight that would actually pull you down if you were in this spot. I feel like that's not something we get a lot of in the original Game of Thrones. For example, when the Lannisters are pretty much losing that war, Robb Stark's winning every battle, you know, Stannis takes most of Renly's army, and Stannis is marching on King's Landing. Tywin is far away from King's Landing, and his army is not big enough to beat Robb and Stannis. Tyrion has to defend King's Landing. They are beaten. The Lannisters are going to lose. The only reason they eventually win is because of their alliance with the Tyrells. But before that alliance was actually sparked, they were going to lose. And when you watch the scenes in King's Landing, Tyrion is very witty. He is nervous, you know, he's trying to take it seriously, but he's still that very witty guy. You know, Bronn, very witty as well. You have Cersei, who's never really as nervous as, like, Rhaenyra is depicted here. You don't see that angst, and maybe you can make the argument, well, Cersei's just a bad bitch. She just does not take no shit from nobody. She really just doesn't fear anything except the lives of her own kids, so she just was able to stay that stern self. But I just feel like there's a human element that's kind of missed that this show actually really leans on, whether intentionally or just kind of that's just the way the actors ended up performing it, but it really adds something here. It makes the weight of war feel heavier. Whereas in Game of Thrones, it feels a little more cartoonish at times. And this really comes to play, especially when Rhaenyra does something that's not in the books, because the books, yet again, are an in-universe textbook of the events of the Targaryen dynasty. Therefore, they are based on eyewitnesses from inside the universe. So when stuff happened outside of the view of those eyewitnesses, you can add some stuff to the show that's not in the book. Hence, the end of this episode where we get this big sequence where Queen Rhaenyra sneaks into King's Landing to meet with Alicent Hightower to talk to her about a way to try to find peace. Now, there's parts of this that I absolutely love. The scene in general is brilliantly put together and brilliantly performed. Yet again, though, I don't love it, because it makes Queen Rhaenyra look like a fucking moron. Why would she do this? Why would she go to King's Landing where she knows there's like an 85% chance she's dying? Because why would Alicent Hightower let her leave? Why? Why would she do that? She could easily walk out at the end of the scene and say, hey, by the way, Queen Rhaenyra is in the city, lock it down, get her, kill her. War's over, because nobody's gonna rally behind Jace, who everybody thinks is a bastard. So that's it, that's the war. It's just a really dumb move that made no sense to me, but the actual scene in general is really powerful, with these two women just discussing the war and discussing King Viserys and his actual wishes, and if they could prevent all of these men that are bloodthirsty from going and killing each other. And they kind of come to the conclusion that no matter what the truth is, no matter what's actually going on, you really can't. Because Alicent tells Rhaenyra, yes, I'm not lying to you, Viserys did tell me in his final words that he wants Aegon to be king. He actually said that. He wanted him to be the prince that is promised. And Rhaenyra's like, the what? She goes, you fucking idiot! That's the prince that— it's Aegon the Conqueror, you moron! You're gonna get us all killed because you're a moron! You stupid, stupid woman! And Alicent Hightower's like, yeah, I might be stupid. Nothing we can do about it now, I guess. See you later, Rhaenyra. Good luck. I hope your family doesn't all die. I hope my family doesn't all die, but guess what? We'll see what happens. Pretty much how the episode ends. They just kind of come to the conclusion that this is all stupid, but it's also inevitable at this point. So, sayonara. There's also a great line in this show, because I think the Targaryens in this war in general is kind of a good example of, like, our real-life nuclear war, right? Because the dragons are kind of like these nuclear weapons. They are something that should divert and stop these groups from actually going to war because of how destructive they are. And both sides here know that if we go to war, no matter who wins, everybody loses. And I don't want to spoil the book and tell you guys what eventually happens, but there is an echoing theme here of that kind of resonates, that if they all go to war, there is going to be a mass amount of loss, boss that when it's all said and done, you're gonna sit there and question who was the winner, who's actually the good guy. Is Cregan Stark the most badass character in the history of Westeros? You guys will find out. Probably not this season, but eventually you'll find out about Cregan Stark. But it's just a really strong show when it comes to the themes here. It's a really strong story. All the characters here are still working at their best, and I am still locked into the show to see where it's going. I think I know where it's going this season. I think I know where they're building up to the conclusion here, but this is just such a strong story, such a strong show. It might be the best show on TV, and I cannot wait to see episode 4 next week. Let me know what you guys thought of House of the Dragon episode 3 down below. Make sure to like this video, subscribe for more, turn on notifications, and I will see you guys in the next one.